Welcome back to Sip&Talk. So glad you could join us today.
Great to have you with us again. We've got a really significant topic to unpack.
Absolutely.
So we got some really interesting feedback lately, mostly coming from listeners who travel a lot, especially folks in the Taiwanese community.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. They've flagged this pattern they run into constantly when they're overseas. It's basically this. They find themselves actively, like almost instantly, not speaking Chinese or Mandarin if they bump into someone they think is from mainland China.
Right.
And it's not just, being shy. It sounds like a very deliberate, almost defensive move.
Oh, it's definitely strategic. It's less some quirky anecdote and more a recognized response. The second you describe that, I could almost hear the klaxon political minefield alert.
Exactly. We're calling it the language bulletproof armor activation.
It really is, though, because as they described, the conversation rarely stays on like, oh, where's the nearest coffee shop?
Yeah.
It turns into an interrogation pretty fast. Think about it like this. It's like me really not wanting to eat your questionable casserole. Let's say it's a casserole of lukewarm political takes wrapped in a sort of revisionist history.
Okay. I'm following.
And you're not just suggesting I try it. You're shoving the spoon in my mouth, telling me it's delicious, and like demanding I sign an affidavit agreeing that your recipe is the only valid one in existence.
Wow. Okay, that is startlingly accurate based on the feedback. It's spot on. This isn't just about, oh, we share some cultural roots. No, This is forced selling.
Totally.
Packaged, signed, sealed, delivered with this heavy dose of nationalistic feeling. You're being sold this whole identity package, this political stance that you very clearly do not want.
And that right there is the core tension we really want to unpack today. We need to look at this whole phenomenon, understand the mechanics behind it. Mm-hmm. So our mission for this Sip and Talk is really to get into the Sinophone identity crisis, separating language, culture, and political nationality. Because honestly, for millions of people around the globe who speak Chinese, making that separation between the language they use and the nation state, well, it's not just important, it's already how they live their lives. It's a done deal for them.
Okay, so let's dive into that. Part one, the core conflict, language versus nation.
Right. Because this whole thing really hinges on one very specific, very foundational misunderstanding.
Okay.
And it's this idea, which frankly has been pushed really hard in certain geopolitical education systems, that just speaking Chinese automatically means you are Chinese in a political national sense.
And it's wild how effective that conflation has been inside one bubble. The PRC's official story, but how quickly it just falls apart the second you step outside that bubble.
Completely collapses.
You apply basic international cultural studies or just like comparative history 101?
Yeah, globally, that equation, language, nationality, or political affiliation just doesn't work. It really stands out as an exception, not the rule.
It really does. And we have so many clear examples, right? Analogies from the real world that make this super obvious. We kind of need to set this baseline. Let's start with the one we know best, the English-speaking world.
Perfect example. Just think about all the different countries where English is the main language.
Yeah.
You've got Americans, Brits, Australians, Canadians, heaps of others too.
Right. All speaking the same language, more or less, comes from the same roots.
But nobody in their right mind, and certainly no government, seriously argues that just because you speak English, you're automatically British.
That would be crazy. Politically, historically, absurd. Their identities went in different directions centuries back.
And you can see this even more starkly if you look at the Spanish-speaking world. I mean, that's a huge, incredibly diverse linguistic community.
Yeah, massive.
We're talking, over 20 independent nations in Latin America using Spanish, from Mexico all the way down to Argentina. But are any of those folks Mexicans, Colombians, Chileans? Do they think of themselves as Spaniards?
Of course not.
No. They're not pledging allegiance to Madrid just because their great-great-great-grandparents spoke Spanish.
Yeah.
The language is part of their heritage, sure.
Right.
But the nation, that's a separate thing. It's sovereign, it's self-determined, it's a political reality.
Yeah.
And that's the key takeaway here. Speaking Chinese fundamentally represents cultural inheritance, language transmission.
It carries shared history, shared culture.
Exactly. But it is not inherently a badge of political loyalty or national identity. It just isn't.
So then the big question is why? Why is this specific link language equals political nation pushed so hard, enforced almost, in the Sinophone context, especially by mainland authorities? Where does that, absolute need come from?
History. Simple as that. Specifically, that huge geopolitical shift back in 1949, the Cold War split.
Okay.
That was really the starting gun for this political separation we see today. You had the Cold War carving things up, and it resulted in the, permanent coexistence of two entities, the PRC, the People's Republic of China on the mainland, and the ROC, the Republic of China, which had moved its government over to Taiwan.
And crucially, these weren't just two governments chilling out. They were, fundamentally opposed, different ideologies.
Totally different systems. Before 49, you had the shared culture, right? After 49, you suddenly had two competing political systems, both laying claim to being the real steward of that culture. Mm. The new communist regime on the mainland, they built a state on, centralized authoritarian control. They suppressed a lot of traditional culture, demanded political conformity.
Over in Taiwan.
Yeah, the ROC government there went down a completely different path.
Yeah.
Eventually, they moved through martial law, but they ended up transitioning into a really vibrant multi-party democracy.
So you had these two totally diverging paths.
Exactly. And a lot of people in the wider Sinophone world, especially those who either lived through the upheavals on the mainland or were part of Taiwan's own growing sense of self, they looked at the PRC, the authoritarian system, and said, that doesn't represent me.
Right. They saw different values, different education, different legal systems, different lifestyles, just complete divergence.
So fast forward to today. For a Taiwanese person saying, I speak Chinese, is, it's a cultural thing. It's about heritage, maybe the script, the history of their ancestors.
Okay.
But saying very clearly, I am not Chinese, that becomes a political statement. And maybe even more importantly, a statement about values. It's asserting autonomy, allegiance to democracy, to a different way of life.
It's that essential split, isn't it, between the cultural vehicle, using Han characters, maybe Confucian ideas, celebrating certain holidays,
right,
and the political affiliation, which is loyalty to a specific government, a specific sovereign entity.
And once that mainland entity became so deeply authoritarian, so centralized,
right,
people who valued things like freedom, human rights, democracy, they really had no choice but to create that distance, politically and in terms of identity.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what defines the modern Sinophone world, that ongoing negotiation of distance.
Which takes us beyond just Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
This leads into what you called the wider crisis of Sinophone identity. This isn't solely a Taiwan issue.
Not at all. This struggle, this need to separate language from political loyalty, you see it playing out all across the region.
So if we connect the dots globally, where else do we see this clearly?
Well, think about major hubs like Hong Kong and Singapore. You see the same dynamics, maybe with different histories, but the core issue is there.
Let's talk Hong Kong first. Totally different background than Taiwan, right? British rule for over a century.
Completely different. Educated under a British system. And while Mandarin was around, the main local language, the cultural language, has always been Cantonese. They developed this really unique kind of hybrid identity. People strongly identified as Hong Kongers.
And now, especially post-2019, that identity distinction feels almost like life or death for many there?
Oh, absolutely. That refusal to be lumped in with the mainland, with the PRC as a political entity, it's just intensified like crazy. For many Hong Kongers now, the idea of adopting a mainland Chinese identity, it's seen as basically accepting the erasure of their own unique culture, their legal freedoms, their whole historical context.
So their fight is overtly political, and they're using language like Cantonese versus Mandarin as a clear boundary.
Definitely. Lines in the sand. And then you got Singapore, which is, again, a different setup, but just as powerful an example.
Right. Predominantly ethnically Chinese population there?
Yes, but their national identity, it is firmly, unequivocally Singaporean. They built a strong, independent nation with a very clear multicultural vision from the start.
Wasn't that Lee Kuan Yew's whole thing? Create a sovereign nation where you could keep your culture, but political loyalty was to Singapore, not some ancestral state.
Precisely. Their whole system proves it.
Yeah.
Language can be just a cultural carrier, used in schools and business, part of your heritage. But it absolutely does not dictate political loyalty or nationality. Singaporeans are loyal to Singapore, period.
So that really reinforces the global picture. You've got these successful, independent nations where lots of people speak some form of Chinese, but their political identity is completely separate.
It shows that the idea of one single monolithic Chinese political identity is, well, It's a geopolitical construct, not a reflection of reality on the ground.
Okay, but here's where it gets, I don't know, kind of tricky, maybe even a little sad. We have to talk about the psychological weight of that label, Chinese, today. It's not just people wanting independence. It's that the word China, especially when it gets tangled up with the state, carries a lot of negative baggage internationally now.
That baggage is real, and it's heavy, and everyone recognizes it. When you hear China in the global news cycle these days, what often comes attached?
Authoritarian politics, surveillance.
Strict censorship, the Great Firewall.
Aggressive nationalism, that wolf warrior diplomacy stuff.
Coercive tactics, military threats.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So it's almost no wonder that people who value like an open society want to distance themselves from that label, even if they love the language or the ancient poetry or the food.
Exactly. That's the core separation you hear articulated again and again across the Sinophone world. Look, I love the culture, the history, the art, the traditions, but I do not want to be associated with that political regime.
Yeah.
It's not anti-culture. It's anti-authoritarianism. It's a protective move, really wrapped up in this identity struggle.
And if we zoom out again, look at the bigger historical picture, this isn't unprecedented, right? We've seen this kind of thing before.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't the first time a big, unified imperial or political identity fractured while the language kind of stuck around. Think about the Slavic language groups after the Soviet Union broke up.
Right, Ukraine, Belarus.
Yeah, nations like that. They kept their linguistic roots, but their political loyalty, and crucially their sense of national self, it shattered and reformed into distinct sovereign identities.
The former Yugoslavia, too, another painful example.
Exactly. The world has gone through this process before. The Sinophone world is just experiencing its own version of that necessary, often painful decoupling right now.
And the rest of the world seems to get it, for the most part.
Well, yeah. Look at major international media, BBC, New York Times, Washington Post. They routinely use distinct labels. They say Taiwanese, Hong Konger, Chinese, Singaporean. It's not controversial for them.
That itself shows that the world understands Chinese in the 21st century isn't one single thing. It's a diverse cultural linguistic circle, not one political bloc controlled from Beijing.
Right, so the insistence on unity, that's coming almost entirely from the political center that stands to benefit from claiming that unity.
Which brings us nicely, I guess, to the psychology behind that insistence, the psychology of forced identity, what we're calling the hard sell. Because when you're traveling, minding your own business, and someone comes up and insists, you are Chinese, why deny it? That's not just like a misunderstanding.
No, it's aggressive. It's an imposition of identity.
The material we looked at called it identity colonization, which sounds intense, but it kind of fits, doesn't it?
It does. It's an attempt to, plant your flag on someone else's sense of self.
Yeah.
Ignoring facts, ignoring history, ignoring their own choice. It's fundamentally about control.
Saying, you must fit into my definition of you because my definition is politically useful to me.
The analogy in the sources was chillingly good. It's like an ex showing up and insisting, you're still mine. Doesn't matter who you're dating now.
Ugh. Or like a parent trying to dictate their 40-year-old kid's career path.
Exactly. It's about power dynamics. It's about control, not genuine connection or cultural understanding.
Okay, but here's a question. The people doing the insisting, are they just being malicious? Or are they, in a way, victims of their own conditioning? What's going on psychologically for the person doing the forcing?
That's a great question. And I think it's probably a mix. The behavior often feels aggressive, absolutely. But the root cause, I suspect it's often driven by a really deep-seated insecurity, a structural anxiety.
How?
Well, the very act of insisting so strongly that others must accept this identity. It suggests a profound anxiety that's tied up in linking the political regime itself to national self-worth.
Ah, okay. So if you've been raised your whole life being told that your national identity is this glorious, unbroken 5,000-year tradition, and that identity is inseparable from the current government.
Right. Then their internal logic kind of has to be. If someone who shares my language, looks like me, shares cultural roots, if you reject being Chinese, does that mean I'm wrong? Does that mean my whole system, my government is somehow illegitimate?
Wow. That's a heavy burden. That vulnerability, the idea that someone else's rejection negates your own self.
It's incredibly powerful. And it's not accidental. It's the direct result of a few key things woven into the social fabric over there.
What are the main drivers then?
Well, first, you got the education system. Intense nationalism. This isn't just, go team pride. It's state-mandated curriculum. Stuff like the whole Sons of the Yellow Emperor narrative. Promoting this idea of a single, unified, seamless history, sometimes even bordering on racial destiny. So if someone denies the identity, they're denying that whole glorious story they were taught was unquestionable truth.
Okay, that's one. What else?
Second, there's undeniable anxiety about Taiwan's success. Here's this place, right? Democratic, technologically advanced, self-governing. And they speak the same language.
It's an uncomfortable mirror.
It's an existential threat to the narrative. Taiwan's existence challenges the core message that authoritarianism is the only way for Chinese societies to be stable and prosperous. They see this thriving, free alternative using the same language, and its very success undermines their system's claims.
So the pressure to make Taiwan conform becomes a way to, erase that alternative.
Exactly. Negate its existence, fold it back into the correct narrative. And the third factor is related. It's just this fundamental inability, or maybe refusal, to accept that the PRC, the government in Beijing, does not have a monopoly on Chinese culture.
The inability to separate the state from the culture.
Right. They can't decouple them. So in their minds, letting Taiwan go
Okay, tell me.
feels like they're betraying 5,000 years of heritage
Yeah.
because they see the state and the heritage as the same thing.
Which loops back perfectly to the political usefulness of forcing this recognition. This isn't just individual psychology playing out in random encounters.
Oh, no, it's politically vital. This insistence is crucial for the PRC's claims of legitimacy, especially regarding the one China principle.
We should probably quickly define that, just in case.
Good idea. Basically, the one China principle is Beijing's non-negotiable stance that there is only one sovereign state called China. The PRC is the sole legal government, and Taiwan is an inseparable part of China. It's the foundation of their whole diplomatic posture.
Got it.
So you can see why, if Taiwan were to just universally and officially say, we're Taiwanese, we are not Chinese, and the world accepted that.
That one China principle starts to look shaky internationally.
Exactly. The world sees the clear difference between Chinese culture, which Taiwan shares, and the PRC state, which Taiwan rejects. So from Beijing's perspective, getting anyone, even just a tourist, encountered abroad to accept the Chinese label, it's a small political win, a tiny validation of their principle.
It's like that puzzle piece analogy again, trying to jam a piece into the wrong spot just so you can say the puzzle's finished.
Yep, the edges don't fit, the picture's wrong, but you keep hammering it in to maintain the illusion of completeness for everyone watching.
And we can actually break this whole dynamic down using that kind of funny philosophical logic trap from The Material, the one about good things and bad things.
Oh, I loved that one. People rush to grab good things. Everyone wants to push away bad things.
Right.
It's so simple, but so effective.
Right. Okay, let's apply it. From the Taiwanese perspective, what's the bad thing they're trying to push away?
Easy. The forced Chinese identity. That's the bad thing. It comes bundled with the political risk of being absorbed, the denial of their democratic values, all that heavy authoritarian baggage we talked about.
It's the hot potato, the Tangshu Shanyu they don't want to hold because it'll burn them.
Precisely. Now flip it. From the mainland perspective, or at least the official state-promoted view, how do they see Chinese identity?
It's the ultimate good thing, right? This glorious, sacred banquet, a feast of history, power, cultural brilliance.
Exactly. They feel they have this incredibly precious, massive, sacred meal, this national identity. And because it's so good, so important, they feel they must get others, like Taiwanese or Hong Kongers, to share it, eat it.
Even if those other people are clearly saying, no thanks, I'm not hungry, or actually, I think some ingredients in your sacred meal might be poisonous to my way of life.
Even then, that's the dark humor of it.
Yeah.
They're aggressively forcing this supposedly wonderful sacred meal onto people who are explicitly refusing it. It's like an unwanted mandatory feast of nationalism.
Okay, that unwanted feast perfectly sets up the next part, the ultimate logic test. We really need to just dismantle this core fallacy. Language dictates nationality once and for all.
Let's do it. Because that logic, if you speak Chinese, you must be Chinese, it's just bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's a cognitive shortcut that falls apart under the slightest scrutiny outside of its specific bubble.
All right, let's run the test cases, the counterexamples that just blow this logic up. Start close to home, within the Sinophone world itself. Test case 1, Malaysian Chinese and Singaporean Chinese.
Right. They speak Chinese, often multiple dialects. They celebrate traditional Chinese holidays. Their heritage is clearly Chinese. But are they nationals of China?
No, they are Malaysian citizens and Singaporean citizens, respectively. Nationality is about law, citizenship, self-determination. Language is heritage. End of story.
If you went up to a Singaporean and said, hey, you speak Mandarin in school, so shouldn't your loyalty be to Beijing? They'd rightly laugh you out of the room. Their nation is independent, sovereign. Language is a tool they use, not a political chain.
Okay. Test case 2. Let's go back to Americans and Brits.
Yep. Americans speak English. Are they British?
No, obviously not. It's ludicrous. Their political identities split centuries ago, often through conflict over control and who gets to define the nation.
Test case 3. Canadians and the French. Lots of Canadians, especially in Quebec, speak French, a language with huge global cultural significance.
Are they French nationals?
Nope. They are Canadians. Distinct national history, distinct political system, separate seat at the UN, same language family, different nation.
So, if we accept all these things as just obvious facts of the world, that language isn't a passport, that history creates new nations,
then the Chinese case, especially regarding Taiwan, has to follow the same logic. Insisting otherwise isn't about cultural reality. It's purely political performance art designed to shape perception.
Let's nail this down with those analogies we liked. How do we capture the difference simply?
Okay, think of language like a mode of transport. Driving a German car, a BMW, a Mercedes, whatever, does that make you German?
No, it means I like the car. Maybe the engineering.
Exactly. Or language is like a menu. Does eating Italian pasta or French bread suddenly make you Italian or French?
No, it means I'm enjoying dinner, appreciating the culture, the food.
Right, so insisting on the flawed logic is like yelling at someone, hey, you drive an English car, you must be British, pay your taxes to the king.
Or, you ate French bread. Surrender your passport to Paris immediately. It's absurd.
It's absurd, and it's deeply problematic because it tries to dictate political reality based purely on cultural affinity or consumption.
Which brings us, unfortunately, to the real-world impact. Part 5. The real-life consequence. Identity harassment abroad. We need to shift from the logic and the psychology to what this actually feels like. What does this political absurdity mean for a regular Taiwanese person traveling or studying or working overseas? This isn't theoretical for them. It's stressful. It happens all the time.
It really does.
Yeah.
And like we said, the conversation might start innocently, but the potential for it to turn sour is there the moment they encounter someone from mainland China, and the talk goes beyond just nice weather.
It kicks off with that simple question, maybe asked in shared Mandarin, where are you from?
And the Taiwanese person answers, honestly, Taiwan.
Boom. That's often the trigger. The immediate, sometimes quite aggressive follow-up that shifts it from geography to politics. Taiwan, oh, that's China, right?
And then the interrogation starts. We've heard countless stories. It's always been part of China. You're promoting independence. You've been brainwashed by the West, blah, blah, blah.
They're instantly put on the defensive, having to justify their very existence, their identity.
And this constant questioning, this persistent denial of someone else's stated identity, that's what gets labeled identity harassment, or even symbolic violence.
Let's pause on symbolic violence. That sounds serious, but it fits. Explain that a bit.
It means it's a form of psychological attack. It uses symbols, language, political labels to try to force someone to accept an identity imposed from the outside. When someone says, I am Taiwanese, and the other person shouts back, no, you are Chinese, they are essentially trying to erase the first person's narrative, their right to define themselves, and ultimately, their autonomy.
And you're saying this is happening more, not less.
It seems to be rising globally, yeah, because it mirrors the increase in mainland Chinese folks traveling, studying, working abroad. It's like an exported version of the state's nationalism, leaking out from controlled domestic narratives into these often awkward, sometimes hostile encounters in neutral places.
So, faced with this immediate pressure, this potential political landmine, how do Taiwanese people cope? What's the defense?
We're seeing that collective strategy emerge, the active, often immediate refusal to engage in Chinese.
Ah, the language instant shift technique we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Taiwanese folks will often just switch immediately, decisively to English, maybe Japanese if they speak it, or sometimes deliberately to Taiwanese Hokkien, which is a distinct local dialect with strong identity markers precisely to create distance, to signal, I'm not playing this game.
They're basically refusing the invitation to the political debate they know is coming.
Let's break down the psychology behind that switch, because it's actually quite a clever, non-violent way to maintain control and sanity.
Okay, reason why.
Pure self-protection, number one. They switch languages to just avoid getting dragged into an argument they know will be pointless, aggravating, maybe even upsetting or publicly embarrassing. They just want peace.
Makes sense. Reason two.
It functions as a kind of implicit protest. It's subtle, right?
Yeah.
Not aggressive. But switching language is like saying, my identity is my business. Your political definition of me, irrelevant. They assert control over the terms of the interaction by changing the medium.
Taking back the conversational power.
And thirdly, it's about risk control. Sticking with Mandarin keeps the conversation in the other person's comfort zone where their political script dominates. Switching to English or Japanese moves the whole thing to neutral ground and international space where those specific nationalistic rules don't really apply. It's safer.
So this language avoidance isn't just random rudeness. It's a learned collective defense mechanism, a sophisticated way to dodge that political chili platter they know is about to be served.
Totally. They're effectively saying, look, I just want to enjoy my trip or focus on my work, and I'm going to remove the very tool, our shared language, that you seem determined to use to harass me about my identity.
It's like asserting micro-sovereignty in a single conversation. Controlling the medium to control the message or lack thereof. It's actually quite elegant in a quiet, rebellious sort of way.
It is a quiet rebellion against having an identity forced upon you.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. Pull the threads together.
Right. So the core argument, really, is that this Sinophone identity crisis stems from this messy, complicated tangle of history, politics, culture, and crucially, individual choice. And the only real way forward seems to be respecting that diversity of identity. Recognizing that different histories, especially the divergence between democracy and authoritarianism, inevitably lead to different self-definitions. Taiwanese identity isn't something fake or imposed. It's a genuine, autonomous outcome of their unique path since 1949.
And we really need to underline this discussion today. It's been about analyzing facts, analyzing a phenomenon. It's not intended as a critique or attack on any specific nation or group of people.
Absolutely not. We're just looking at what happens when a rich cultural heritage gets sort of weaponized for political ends and how people naturally push back against that. We really hope you, our listeners, take this as encouragement to think critically and independently about these complex geopolitical issues.
Because ultimately, if we follow the logic from these real-world experiences, the very act of forcing an identity onto someone else says something profound about the person doing the forcing, doesn't it?
It really does. I think the ultimate takeaway might be this. When someone insists, really insists, on forcing others to accept their narrow version of reality, political, historical, whatever it often means, they're deeply afraid of something.
Afraid of what?
Afraid of the truth. Afraid that the alternative reality, in this case, Taiwan's existence as a free, self-defined, successful entity, proves that another way is possible, that their way isn't the only way, and that thriving alternative path is a direct challenge.
And that autonomy, that existence, whether you're looking at it from Taipei or Hong Kong or Singapore, feels like something that needs protecting.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this Sip and Talk.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. If you found this exploration of identity and politics interesting, please do subscribe to Sip and Talk wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps us out.
And hey, before you head off, definitely check out our good friend Micky's YouTube channel. It's called Micky to Life. He's got hilarious memes, great liquor reviews, seriously top-notch stuff, and his latest travel vlogs from Europe are fantastic. Go show Micky some love.
You won't regret it. We'll see you next time on Sip and Talk.